A year or two ago, I did a video about how gacha games are a scam. I mean, the quality was kind of shit. And I went over how unethical the monetization is in these gacha games. Now, I know that feels like saying that grass is green, but I feel like most discussions or discourse or debates about gacha games or specific aspects of it seems to ignore this fact. Now, a lot of these dumb or bad takes tend to be about stuff like fan service, character relationships, shipping, power creep, or other ethics or moral based discussions about the genre itself. And the reason it's dumb, at least in my opinion, is that it's a gacha game. It's already like the bottom of the barrel in the gaming world. Recently, there was a character in Wuthering Waves that followed a very classic trope or cliche, which is calling the main character, you, the player, senpai. And somehow this caused outrage. Not for the mediocre writing or the story or whatever it may be. It's because they turned the character into another waifu in a genre of games that is known to be a husbando and waifu collector. Now, most of the outrage seems to come from people who are new or people who are young who don't really understand nuance, but they've got the spirit, and I appreciate the spirit for pointing out problematic things. But I feel like it's just directed at the wrong things. It's like a pattern I notice, right, with people who claim to be progressive or virtuous, but yet they don't understand nuances of a topic or the multiple angles and perspective and interpretation that thing or topic can have. And the other thing that is becoming very prevalent for some reason in this anime gacha game space is like this purity culture or purity checking phenomenon, right? Where everyone deals in like absolutes. Because like, God forbid you like a series that has fan service. Now you're a Guna. Or God forbid the series you like has one character that could be seen as lollybait. Not even actual lollybait, just one that could be seen as one. And now you're Epstein. I mean, it's like mostly kids that give out these like half-baked takes or like bad faith takes, I mean, I hope they're kids. Wait, what? Pause. What the fuck? But like, for example, right? A lot of people seems to have a problem with gacha games over-sexualizing their character or relying too much on fan service. This is like the equivalent of complaining that the casino you went to is serving too much alcohol. On the surface, it's like a valid complaint, but like I've went over the topic of fan service a couple of times on this channel, and my stance on it is the same, which is it depends. And there's honestly no universal standard or rule that these companies should follow. In the case of gacha games, I would argue it's actually kind of necessary. Now, hear me out. It is necessary because how else are they going to justify the price of some of these characters? Keep in mind, even with pity, you're gonna spend at least like $50 US, or your time that is equivalent to like $50 US. You know what I mean? Like, you either spend a shit ton of time or a shit ton of money. So one of the ways that they're gonna like justify this pricing is if the character is attractive or broken, but we'll get into that. Also, it's about to be 2026, like it's like a couple weeks away. Characters that are fan servicey are not just made for the men, but for the women too. Women characters are also made for women as well. Like look at ZZZ, right? Damn near everybody in that game gets sexualized. The women, the men, and the robots, especially the robots. And everybody, no matter the sexual identity or orientation, be gooning to that shit, bro. And the developers know about this. And they're taking full advantage of it because there is money, and I mean a shit ton of money to be made from gooners in general. But again, some people don't really get this though. They think it's all like disgusting or weird or misogynistic. It's a bit more complex than that. We are still shaming people for stuff like this again. You play one game that has fan service, now you're a gooner. And like, oh, you're a gooner, bro. Ain't nothing wrong with that. Except, the only time that I feel like it's a valid complaint about fan service is if the fan service is on a younger character or a younger looking character. Oh my god, is that a Labubu? Which leads to the other argument, which, I don't know, I feel like it's a bit nonsensical sometimes, which is the topic of shipping or character relationship. Now I get people can have hobbies, and I feel like you are free as an individual to ship whoever you want with whichever character you want. Like I feel like as long as it's like fictional characters, I feel like it's fine. But I don't think making multiple Twitter threads arguing about how canon a ship that you like whilst cyberbullying those that don't agree with you or have ships that you don't like count as a hobby. But people don't understand this because gacha games intentionally have characters interact in like vaguely romantic ways where you could interpret it as being platonic or romantic, but it's rarely ever canon unless explicitly stated, like, or on the off chance that it's heavily implied that you'd be kind of stupid not to like say, yeah, that's what they were intending to do. And the reason being, it's one of the ways they get you to be super invested in the game and its characters, which in turn for the companies, equals more money. You're gonna spend more money on the character, like you're buying the banners, the merch, variants, skins, and the other side of it, which is the self-insert harem collection thing, where in some cases every character in the game is only attracted to you, the player character. It's also for the same reason. Like, what people don't get is the genre itself was built with this like specific appeal. Now this next part is gonna be like a hot take, and honestly it's debatable, but it does appeal to like lonely people who can't form companionship IRL, and as such they compensate for it with anime and video game characters. It relies on you having a sort of parasocial relationship with these characters, or having a sort of fantasy of them. And it's for the companies to gain more profit. And this whole thing plays into how these developers approach representation of a specific kind. We'll get into the one that you're thinking about. See, games like Uma Musume, for example, early on leaned super heavy into like the Yuri genre. And this can be seen in the first reveal trailer, where the characters are about one dialogue away from Scissor City. But this isn't always done in good faith, nor does this mean the company itself is like progressive or is going into that direction. Not always anyway. Best example of this is like Honkai Impact. I played Honkai Impact when it first came out like 6-7 years ago.
6-7. I'm such a fat fucking chud.
Then my phone blew the fuck up and I kind of forgot about it. But when I came back, I noticed that damn, this game only got female characters, and most of them be Yuri coded as fuck. And this was intentional. For anyone new or young, or perhaps might still not understand how this shit works, there is a phenomenon amongst hardcore otakus, or I guess you could call them incels. It wouldn't be the most appropriate terms, but whatever, right? Where these people would not want to see their favorite waifus or oshis interacting with other characters or people of the opposite gender, in order to preserve like this image of purity or this fantasy they have about that character. As such, they would much rather see their waifus or oshis be in a relationship with another girl. It's a weird situation where the developers can do these progressive storylines and represent themselves and people in their community, while at the same time pandering to these groups of people. Because it's like the concept of, if I can't have it, nobody can have it. But for some reason, if it's with a girl, it doesn't count. Honestly, somebody gotta make a research about that topic. So does this mean that Uma Musume was pandering to these like incels or femcels? No, not really. I wouldn't say so. Reason being that Cygames, the company who made Uma Musume, also made the anime Bang Bang Bravery, a super robot anime in which the main character has a gay relationship with his male robot. But this circles back to the whole shipping culture thing, where these companies will have purposefully make their characters have interactions that can be interpreted as romantic or platonic, so they can farm the parasocials while not offending any one of them. If the interaction is so open to interpretation, you're not gonna piss off the yaoi fans, you're not gonna piss off the Yuri fans, and you're not gonna piss off the, what the fuck do you even call the straight shippers? Like, straight shipper is such an unelegant term. Like, what the fuck do you even call them?
Yeah. My granny called, she said, Travis, you work too hard, don't worry, you forget about me.
The only complaint that I'm on board with in regards to like representation is with the lack of, ethnic diversity. It's not a problem with all the games, but the big ones don't really have that. A lot of these gacha games are appealing to the global market, but yet don't have characters that are diverse in their looks. Even if we were to just like take the brain rot perspective on this, right? Just the most brain rot take ever. A lot of people like dark-skinned anime baddies. There are entire genres of spicy doujins dedicated to dark-skinned baddies. Putting aside the ethical implications of it. So it seems strange to me that they don't include enough dark-skinned baddies. So why is it kind of, stupid or pointless to point out these individual issues? Because the issues themselves aren't issues, they're symptoms to the actual problem. And that problem being the gacha mechanic, or I guess the industry itself. Remember that comparison I made to the casino? Gacha games, much like casinos, are predatory and somewhat unethical. You could argue. As such, they will use any means necessary to make sure you spend as much money and time as possible. This is why characters are over-sexualized. This is why power creep is a thing. This is why characters all fawn over the player. Like, if they can't get you to buy the characters because they are hot, Well, they're gonna make the characters broken as fuck. Because this is a sign not that there are problems within the gacha games itself, it's a sign that the system is working as intended. All these things that some people deem to be problematic, I feel like it's only problematic if you were to compare any gacha game to any other normal game. And think about it this way. Games like Call of Duty, Overwatch, Apex Legends, and many others had a similar system of monetization a couple of years ago. And damn near everybody hated it, criticized it, and in some countries even outright banned the system. And nowadays, none of them even use that type of monetization scheme. Granted, Fortnite exists, but gacha games get a pass because anime, you know? I mean, it's that whole fucking meme again. If something is problematic, we're gonna have issue about it, but if it's anime, sometimes we just kind of excuse that shit. So I feel like if you're gonna have a problem with gacha games, have a problem with that. Because these problems exist as a result of the monetization scheme. Not just because the devs are like weird or whatnot. I mean, it does sometimes, but these things only exist because of that monetization scheme. They exist to justify the way these developers monetize their game. It's because these are the things that help them make money in the end. But on the other hand, it's also hard to argue that it's a definitely bad thing, because much like a casino, it's not really bad if you are a responsible adult, you have self-control, and you don't have addictive tendencies. And also if you understand what you're getting into, you know, like with a casino, you understand you're going into this, you're guaranteed to lose money at some point. And with gacha games, when you get into it, you're supposed to understand that, yeah, they're gonna use fan service. Power creep is bound to happen. And it's gonna turn into a harem waifu collector and husbando collector at some point. And at least you know where they came from and how it's being used and why it's being used. I think the bad part of it is that these games are being marketed to a younger audience, an audience that don't really understand the nuance and the context of the genre. And they also generally target people with vulnerabilities, you know, those that are susceptible to parasocial relationships and those that have addictive tendencies. Now, I'm not saying that these types of complaints are completely invalid, of course not. And if you don't like it, you should just leave. No, but at least understand that for some of these things, it's just impossible to change because in a sense, these things have to exist because they rely on one another. For example, the gacha system needs to have characters that have huge amounts of fan service, and the only reason that fan service also exists is because people like to goon to that shit. So things like waifu baiting and all these other stuff that we talked about, they exist to justify the gacha mechanic, and the gacha mechanic justifies itself by existing because it's providing you with all of these goodies, so to speak. Because without any of these things, the justification for the continuation of the gacha system or gacha mechanic falls apart. Because by default, gacha games are already in like the gray area of morality, so to speak. And it was intended for an audience that at least understand and enjoy that type of thing. You know, i.e. the gambling and the fan service and the pay-to-win mechanics. A lot, not all of these problematic, but most of these problematic aspects with like the waifu baiting or like the harem stuff, the fan service, the tropes, they're part of the genre, they're inseparable. Understand that these gacha game companies would employ some of the most unethical means in order to achieve profit. Like they will literally prey on like the most vulnerable groups of people. Some of these gacha game companies literally make other game companies like EA or Activision look like saints. So as a whole, I do find it interesting and somewhat weird that there are still people who know that, you know, all these gacha games have like problematic aspects to them, but yet still support these games and these companies, still play them, you know, still spend money on them. But then every single update still complain about a problem that is essentially ingrained into the very genre itself. And to me, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.